Good morning, and welcome to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
And we welcome you to Talk of the Town for this Friday, January 8th. I'm Gary Stevens. We'll be open line following the 10 and 11 o'clock news blocks. During the 10 o'clock news blocks, I'm going to play an excerpt from the Red Eye Radio show about the long-term political effects of the incidents on Wednesday for the Republican Party and for Mr. Trump. And would like to get some thoughts from you on that. But I'll play the excerpt and then we'll maybe talk about it a little after 10 o'clock. We'll also have Patty Vandenberg in about an hour, what's new around Holland. And in our 10:30 segment, we'll have the Allegan County Commissioners from the northwest corner of Allegan County that represents Ottawa and, represents the Holland area. That is Board Chairman Jim Story and former Board Chairman, current Commissioner Dean Cappinga. But in our first half hour, second Tuesday of the month, it's time for Ask the Attorney. And we bring to you every odd numbered month, not because he's odd, it just falls that way. Respected owner of Central Park Law. He is Nathan Bocks. Yes, he is also the mayor. But let's talk to him about legal questions, shall we? At 395-1450. Nathan, good morning and welcome back to WHTC.
Good morning. It's good to be here after such a long hiatus.
By the way, before we go much further, Nathan, of course, joined us a little more than an hour ago with City Hall Chatter. The segment audio and now video is available. Yes, I've been a busy boy. And we got the audio up, of course, at just like that at WHTC.com. And in the description of the video, there's a link to the description of the audio. There's a link to the video, and you can see us in action through that link. So, and by the way, this is also a Zoom conversation. We'll be putting a video on this a little bit later on. So if you got a legal question for Nathan, he'll be happy to answer it at 395-1450, 395-1450. Nathan, I'm going to throw you a curveball right off the bat. This call came a couple of days ago. I think it was on Tuesday. And I'm not certain whether or not you can answer this, but it does entail some legal responsibilities. This is more of a consumer legal question than anything else. I'm going to play the clip, and then I want to see what would you advise in your standing as an attorney on this.
All righty.
Good morning, Gary. So I just want to give a little warning to people out there who's thinking possibly maybe getting a food card. Let's see, I did this about 10 years ago, and I was having trouble. I was just getting by with my bills. I was having a little trouble getting groceries, and somebody suggested, hey, Carl, go to Health and Human Resources there, and they'll give you a food card. That'll help you out. Well, that sounds pretty good. So I did that and did it for just 1 year and got off of that. And thank God I could afford groceries and everything like that. Then again, and let's see, it was about 4 years later, they sent me this letter from the department there. And right away I was like, well, we agency error, we made a mistake, but we want you to pay back $1,100 that we didn't mean to give you through your food card. So, like I said, I thought I did everything right at the time. I did nothing wrong. I even asked them, I said, well, I don't want to get in any trouble with this. What do I have to do? And they said, well, all you got to do is report your hours if those change, which I reported to them about, I think 4 or 5 times my hours changed over the weeks. And they never caught that, and they never caught their mistake that they did for almost a year. They were overpaying me, supposedly. So, and I'm sure a lot of people had a good deal there with them, but I'm sure there's a lot of other people out there that had the same thing that I had. So just watch out. Once you sign your name there, that was the deal. I tried to fight this just for, the sake of that I didn't do nothing wrong, and I felt they should have paid for their mistake. And I tried to fight. I took time off from work. I had to go to Allegan. cost me $300-400 there at least, I bet you, just to try to fight it. And it's like, well, no, they said, you have to pay it once you sign your name there. That's it. Don't matter whose fault it is. So just a little warning out there to people. I'm sure a lot of people had a good thing with them, but I'm sure a lot of people had a bad thing with them like me. All right.
All right. I'm not an attorney. I don't even play one on the radio, Nathan. Is this something, I don't know whether or not it's even in your real of expertise on this, but do you need to, if you're fighting something for $1,100, what can one do? Is this something that you need to get legal help on?
That's a really difficult question to answer, and actually parallels a phone call I just had with a prospective client a couple of minutes ago on one aspect of it anyway. I'm going to make some assumptions about what the caller said. I'm going to assume that the caller did do everything that they were supposed to do in regard to reporting income and providing the information. I think that he was probably talking about a bridge card or something similar, depending on the time frame of the program. Not an area that I deal with. I used to do medicated nursing home care planning, where we had to do a whole lot of income verification and asset verification with the state of Michigan, because those were needs-based programs, as is that bridge card program. There are a lot of different issues that come in with this. And the first one is, hey, what happens if you receive more benefits than you're entitled to, and it wasn't your fault, it was a mistake of, the state or even the federal government? The parallel might be, hey, I got a tax refund and they gave me way more on my tax refund than I was really entitled to. So I took that check, I deposited that check, I spent that money, and then the IRS calls me back and says, or notifies me and says, hey, we gave you too much money, we want that money back. The initial response to that is, hey, guess what? You got to pay that money back. It's not that the state has come to him and said, we want you to pay us something. What they're saying is, we need you to give us the money back that we inaccurately gave to you. The problem is now he doesn't have that money anymore because he used it for groceries down the line. That's a very difficult question and a difficult circumstance, but I think the short and simple answer on that is, yeah, likelihood is he's going to have to pay that money back. The other question, which is the one that you asked, is, should he hire an attorney to fight that issue? And my answer to that is, it's going to be a really difficult one. He only spent $300 or $400 to try to protect himself on $1,100. There's always a balance with that. I just got off the phone with a prospective client who there was a home purchase, and after the home was purchased, there were some issues with a couple of appliances. Total cost of replacing the appliances was a couple of $1,000s. And, he said, should I pursue it? And I said, I don't do litigation work anymore, but one thing that you want to be really careful of, if you're looking at pursuing a lawsuit, is that lawsuits are expensive. And in the time 20 years ago when I was doing litigation work, I had a policy where I would not take a case if I did the math and determined that there's no way that I would ever be able to get the client ahead of the game on it. I said, you do not want to engage in a $10,000 lawsuit over $2,500, because yes, you may win that $2,500, but if you turn around and you get a $10,000 bill from the attorney, you're not going to be happy. You're going to be behind the game. And that may not seem fair, but that's the way our system works in the United States. Except in very limited circumstances, you do not get your attorney's fees. You have to be willing to fund the cost of your own lawyer in order to pursue something. So what do? Well, for this person, I suggested perhaps small claims court was a better avenue. Small claims court is designed specifically for smaller claims, smaller dollar amounts, and lawyers are not allowed to be part of that small claims process because it gets expensive very quickly. So in regard to this particular caller, I'd have to make the assumption that yes, he was not legitimately entitled to those benefits. Was it worthwhile to fight to make that determination? Probably was. Was it worth the $300 to do that? Might have been, depending on the circumstances that were there, but one of those unfortunate situations that sometimes we get caught up in.
395-1450, 395-1450. If you have a question, legal question, with attorney Nathan Bocks of Central Park Law here in Holland. He specializes more in probate and in business law, and we've talked about some of the subjects with him along those lines. But he might be able to express an opinion. Keep in mind, any of the opinions that might be expressed in this particular segment, we always tell our listeners, please consult with your own attorney to be able to, if you need full and complete guidance, we can just basically point you in the right direction. I think it's a good way of putting it.
Exactly. I try to qualify what I say as much as I can with saying, well, I'm assuming this, or I'm assuming that, or this may be the way that it is. But that's exactly right. There are always more facts and more to a story than you're ever going to hear on a simple telephone call. And I often smile at my office where I will be an hour into an interview with a client, and they will say, oh yeah, and by the way, here's one more piece of information that I hadn't told you, which completely changes the circumstance.
395-1450. Good morning. You're on the line with attorney Nathan Bocks.
Good morning. Perhaps Nathan has already answered this question. There's a certain lawyer that has a program on WHTC with the initials DC, and he talks about elder care, protecting your assets. If you're anticipating maybe having to go to a nursing home and all this. Do you handle that kind of thing, Nathan?
I do a lot of those same kinds of things. One of the major areas of my practice is estate planning, wills and trusts, helping people with end of life decisions. And the way I describe it is, I help with the planning for end of life, and I help with the administration after somebody has passed away. I did used to do Medicaid and nursing home care planning as well. I did that up to a few years ago. But I've decided over the years that as my practice gets busier and busier, I'm going to narrow my focus. And I've become so busy with the estate planning and the real estate and the small business part that I decided to not do the Medicaid and nursing home care planning anymore. But there are great attorneys in town that I then refer people to.
So the answer is no on that. And I have one other question about rules of evidence. It's hard to believe with all the shenanigans about the voting and almost every news broadcast says there was no fraud, there was no fraud. It's hard to believe in the whole country that there wasn't one case. People were willing to give affidavits that there were shenanigans going on, and that there wasn't one case that was brought before the court. That everything was cast, it wasn't even brought before the court before. What are your thoughts on rules of evidence, please?
I'm a ardent believer in the rules of evidence. One of the things that you learn your first year of law school is you'd start taking evidence courses. And what's very important is evidence in a court of law is different than someone's opinion. It's different than just what someone is saying. Affidavit, you use the term affidavit. An affidavit is done under a sworn oath with the penalty of perjury. You could go to jail if you filed something with the court that's not true. And while I can't speak to any one of the particular cases because I haven't read through those 60 some cases that were there, but I think it was very telling that the things that I heard being said in the news or in social media were not then brought up in front of a court. Lawyers are very careful about what we say to the court, because we too, as attorneys, have sworn oaths. Our law licenses are in jeopardy if we say something to the court or provide information to the court that we know is false. And not only do we have an obligation to not lie, we have an obligation to do our best to determine that the information that we're providing to the court is the truth. And so if evidence is not being brought forth to the courts in those cases, there's a reason for that. The lawyers don't want to bring forth evidence to the court that they don't believe themselves to be true because they don't want to lose their licenses in the process.
Thank you.
I appreciate the call. 395-1450, 395-1450. Good morning. You're on the line with attorney Nathan Bocks.
Yes, I got a question. I got a life, living will and a power of attorney. My brother's a power of attorney. My wife is together. What's he got to do? Your checking account's got to be under his name too, as well pays his bills.
Now, you said you have a living will. Is it a trust or is it a power of attorney for medical and a power of attorney for financial? Because people
Mike, what's his name? Who done it is one on Jane Street, cross street from power attorney.
Okay.
I think I got both. I got both of them.
Okay, so a power of attorney there are two basically different kinds. One for medical care, one for financial matters, and then there are additional ones under subsets under that. But with a power of attorney is essentially a document that says, I want to give someone else the authority to do something for me on my behalf. So in regard to financial matters, if all you have is a power of attorney, your bank account and investment accounts would still be in your name, but you've given somebody else the authority to access or sign those documents on your behalf. I think probably what I would be safest in saying or most comfortable saying is, if you'd like me to take a look at those particular documents that you have, I'd be happy to do that and let you know what it is that you have and what it is that they do, because saying I have a power of attorney is a lot like saying I drive a vehicle. I don't know whether it's a car. I don't know whether it's a truck. I don't know what it's able to do or not able to do. Frankly, it might be an airplane. So I don't know if your vehicle can fly or not. So without looking at the actual power of attorney, it's really hard for me to be able to say exactly what it can do and what you should be doing with your assets because of it.
Okay.
What's your phone number on where I can get hold of you?
616-395-3761.
Can you repeat that, Nathan?
Certainly. 616-395-3761. And of course, if you call me right now, I won't be answering the phone. But my reception.
Yeah, I know. I got Ron Zicki, my lawyer. That's all I was asking.
You mean Ken Pizicki? Yeah, Ken also does the Ask the Attorney program on the even months. He's an even-keeled guy. That's why he gets the even months. And Ken is very smart, does great work, honest as the day is long. So my guess is you're in good shape. Frankly, you may want to give him a call too and say, hey, what exactly is it that I have and am I all set? Because Ken would be able to answer that question for you, I'm sure, very easily.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much for the call. 395-1450, 395-1450. Good morning. You're on the line with attorney Nathan Bocks.
Good morning. My question is about adult guardianship. I have adult guardianship over my brother, and I've called his counselor and his doctor's office asking for return phone calls because I need to give them information and to ask some questions, and I'm not getting return phone calls. They do have on file the papers from the court showing my guardianship, and I'm unsure of how to handle this.
Okay, so is this a relatively recent phenomenon that they're not giving you a call back, and then a follow-up question? Do you have any way of knowing why it is that they're not calling back? Or are they just not calling back? You're not getting any response.
They're not calling back and giving a response. It's been a couple weeks for each of the places that I have requested a call back. I've asked twice with each place.
Okay, and were they calling you back? Have you ever had any interaction with them?
No, not with them. Just with the front desk, whoever answers the phone.
Okay, so because my initial thought was it might be COVID related. Lots of places are understaffed, short-staffed right now, so that's been an issue in a lot of different areas recently. But if you're getting through to the receptionist's office, but they're not calling you back, it could be a couple of different things. One, it still could be COVID related. Two, it could be what it sounds like you think that it might be, which is they don't think you have the authority to actually talk to them about what's going on. If that's the case, you may want to send them a copy of your paperwork with a letter that says, I've been trying to contact you and you should be in communication with me, and here's here's the proof, the evidence. We had a call about evidence before. Here's the evidence that I actually have the authority to be able to talk to you about these things. That may be your course. If you don't get a response to that, then the next course would be contacting the probate court that gave you the guardianship in the first place and say, I've been trying to exercise my power here. I've been trying to help take care of my brother, but I'm not able to get an answer from these folks. And believe me, those counselors will respond to the court if they're not responding to you.
Oh, good advice. Thank you. I will try the letter first, and I appreciate your talking with me.
No
Thank
problem.
you very much for the
Good day.
call. 395-1450, 395-1450. Also, we're talking holidays. And you never know, that could be a factor too.
Exactly. There are all kinds of really legitimate reasons why people don't get back to folks right away. And I like to give people the benefit of the doubt with those kinds of things. And times are odd at the moment with these kinds of things.
Good morning. You're on the line with attorney Nathan Bocks.
Good morning. Nathan Bocks just mentioned a little while ago about lying in the court, and that people could go to jail for that. I'm wondering if he'd make any comments on the fact that almost all the men that are women, everybody that gets caught, gets accused many times, much proof, but they almost all plead not guilty. Occasionally one will plead guilty, but most of them don't. And how does he give an answer on that? That's lying in the court and allowed seemingly, but it's lies, and the attorneys oftentimes encourage them to do it. Thanks.
I appreciate the call, Nathan.
And that's and giving an initial plea in a criminal case like that, I know it's going to sound strange to people, but is different than testifying in court. That we are all in criminal court in the United States, we are all innocent until proven guilty. And so it is, while a criminal defendant needs to plead one way or the other, that's not the same as testifying. And it is the obligation of the prosecutor in a criminal case to prove their case. And a defendant may stand silent in a criminal case and never have to give testimony at all. You are not required as a defendant in a courtroom in the United States in a criminal case to testify at all. You have the right to remain silent. And it is very clear in the court rules and the laws of the United States that silence is not allowed to be taken into consideration as an indication of guilt or innocence. And so it may seem strange, but that's very different. But if you're giving testimony in a court under oath, you have an obligation to tell the truth. If you are an attorney that is presenting evidence to the court, we have an obligation to tell the truth to the court. We are officers of the court. And as frustrating as that may seem for some people that we represent, I've had circumstances before where I have to say to a client, I have to present it this way. No, I'm not allowed to say that. And if the judge asks me a question, I have to give an honest answer to that question. Because my law license is in jeopardy if I don't, but also my reputation with the court is at risk with that. Every lawyer wants to make sure that they have a good reputation with the courts, so that the judge knows when the lawyer tells them something that the lawyer is telling them the truth and the whole truth in what's going on.
He is attorney Nathan Bocks. The website centralpark.law. If you we'll put a link to it when we put the podcast up of this conversation on our website at WHTC.com in a few moments. Nathan, as always, we appreciate your thoughts, your legal thoughts during your bi-monthly Ask the Attorney appearance. Ken Bazicki will be chatting with us next month. We'll talk to you in the Ask the Attorney segment in the month of March. Nathan, thank you for joining us this morning.
Always a pleasure, Gary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nathan Bocks on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC.